Hi, it's Davina, and I'm doing another set of art activities today. These art activities are ones that I use in the Gallery 1 summer day camps that happened in 2019, but not in 2020 because COVID. So I'm bringing them back thanks to a grant from the Ellensburg Arts Commission and turning them into YouTube videos so that educators and parents and other art instructors can incorporate them into other lesson plans. Last time we talked about line. This time we're going to talk about the second art concept, which is shape. Now the human brain loves to jump to shapes, and we can do it even when a true shape isn't present. A shape is where you have lines that connect. So, for example, the easiest shape is a single line that connects. It's the circle. One line, it's connected, it's all good. But if we had something that looked close, we could still see, oh, that's going to be a circle. We could even have a bunch of dots. And we say, oh, those dots, they kind of make a circle. Even though it's not really connected, our brain does that connection. So there's a ton of shapes, and we learn them early on. The first easiest shape uses one line, that's a circle. A shape that uses two lines would be something like maybe an almond shape or an eyeball shape or a heart shape. Two lines with points at either end. And there's other ones that are not symmetrical, and I'll talk about symmetrical in a little bit, such as, oh, that is a shape. It totally has shape qualities. It's got lines that connect. It's a shape. I don't know what that shape is called, but it's a shape. Then there's three-lined shapes, like the triangle. Now that has three sides that are all the same, but you could have a triangle where only two sides are the same and one side is a little bit shorter. You could have a triangle where all three sides are not the same. So triangles, three lines, they are a thing. Four, we've got everyone's favorite, the square. There's also the rectangle. We can go with a rhombus. There's also trapezoids. Now that's a fairly regular and symmetrical trapezoid, but there are also four-sided objects where nothing really seems to be the same at all. That's just fine. They are all four-sided objects. Let's keep going on. There's five-sided objects. Let's see if I can do this freehand. Ta-da, a pentagon. But any five-sided object still works. So you could have a that still has five sides. I don't know what that shape is called, but it's got five sides. You could have still has five sides, still a shape. let's move on to 6 sides. I can do this. There we go. 6-sided object where all sides are the same, but again, we could do the same thing we did with the 5s and make them not the same. Now, a 7-pointed object is a little bit hard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. But 8 on graph paper is pretty easy because you just take a square and then you knock off the corners. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's our typical stop sign shape. But you'll notice the more sides you put onto the shape, the more it starts resembling a circle again. So if you're going to have all of the sides equal, I think this is called a regular shape, where all of the sides are exactly the same size going around. Well, you're going to end up eventually having something that looks very much like a circle, and you can't really get much more than an octagon before your brain just goes, oh, that's a circle. Like if I were to do a 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can see that it's getting very close to the circle we had before, and our brain just wants to make it round. It'll end up looking like a bumpy circle, but we keep getting closer and closer to that. So really the main ones are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sort of 7, but it's kind of hard to draw, and then 8 with an octagon. Let's talk about symmetry. Now, we learn a lot about shapes when we are young children, and we also learn how to write as young children, and that has some stuff to do with symmetry. Now this is a fun activity to do with kids. Some kids will need to use the mirror, but I find that dyslexic kids don't. Dyslexia helps you kind of flip things around in 3 dimensions in your mind, and when you've got a 2-dimensional shape that has a specific meaning only in one orientation, it's difficult for dyslexic kids, which is why the capitals are absolutely great. Once you get into lowercase b's and d's and p's and q's, that can get really confusing for kids. But in the capitals, it's pretty easy. This activity is to find the line of mirroring. So with A, we've got a vertical line of mirroring. Now some kids will go all the way through and they'll find all of the vertical mirrors. W is another vertical mirror right there. M has a vertical mirror. H has a vertical mirror. I, let's see, O has a vertical mirror. T has a vertical mirror. U has a vertical mirror. X and Y and V. All of those have vertical mirrors. Those are the first and easiest to see, but that's not all. Because some, like our lovely B here, has a horizontal. You'll find a lot of them have horizontals, at least in the uppercase. F does not. G does not. It's got that going on. J does not. K does. L, nope.
P, nope. Q, nope. R, different. Oh, X does. Now there's something special going on with S and Z, and usually only dyslexic kids will pick this up at the beginning because some kids very analytical. It's either this way or that way. Oh, I forgot H also, and I also have a horizontal mirror that they do. See that? See that? So that's another tricky one. It could be both, like X, H, and I. But for S and Z, they've got that rotational symmetry. So I'm going to put a little dotted line there. It's rotational. There we go. So we've marked out all of these different types of symmetry. Now it only works with vertical symmetry until you put that little tail on it, and then it's just like Q. You can't do anything symmetrical with it. This is a way of kind of getting kids' minds ready to think in mirrors. Oh, and I forgot to mention about O. It also goes across, but depending on how circular you make your O, if you make your O a perfect circle, it has every single possible way of being mirrored if it's a perfect circle. That's the thing about perfect circles, is they're perfectly mirroring symmetrical. So we'll deal with circles in the next lesson when we use drafting tools, but for the most part our O's are kind of oval in shape, so they only have the vertical and the horizontal axis of symmetry.
So what are some activities that you can do now that you've got the kids thinking in symmetry? Well, one of my favorite ones is to take a picture, it could be a drawing or a photograph, and have it split in half so that the students get to see the original and then they have to finish off the other side. Now, with advanced kids, older kids, particularly high school age, I would do it with a face. Faces are hard, so you could choose to do it with like a cartoon face or an animal face, but I would stay away from human faces because kids would feel kind of self-conscious if their side of the face ended up looking a little bit Quasimodo-ish. So you can take a drawing or a picture and just when you copy it on a copy machine, cover one half of it, and then it's up to them to draw what they think the rest of that flower or animal or tree would look like. Maybe it's symmetrical, maybe it's not quite symmetrical, but it gets that idea across of making one side blend with the other. Another activity is to have the students make a mirrored ink blot or paint blot, or basically a Rorschach. I love the card game Rorschach. It's a fun game to play as a group. When I'm doing this with students, I will sometimes go through a series of these just as kind of an attention grabber, and then they get to be partnered with maybe the person that they had the most similar answers to, which means they're thinking most similarly to their partner. Or maybe they get partnered with a person that they had the most different answers to, because, I mean, you want to have new creative thoughts. Sometimes I'll split up the room into groups where each of the groups has a person who answered differently, or everybody in that group answered the same. Because you could have something like, okay, do you see a butterfly here or two sumo wrestlers? Or a happy skunk? Or two ice cream cones? When it's actually the Rorschach test where people say the first thing that comes to mind, if you said ice cream cones, okay, maybe it's close to lunchtime. If you said butterfly, maybe you just like butterflies. If you said two sumo wrestlers, does that automatically mean that you're a fighting, violent person? No, you might just have watched sumo wrestlers on the TV recently. And if you see a happy skunk, does that mean that you think the person giving you the test smells bad? Or maybe you watched a Pepe Le Pew, cartoon? Or maybe it just seriously looks like a skunk with a big smile looking at you. I don't know. It's what your mind makes of it. If you have your students doing ink blots, it's sometimes fun to just leave that as it is. But how I've used it in the past is I had them do that with orange paper, white and black paint, and they made butterfly wings. After the paint had dried, we had them cut out the two butterfly wings and then used a series of pulleys and simple hinges to make little toilet paper tube butterflies that had wings that moved. That was in our STEM day camp because we went over simple machines and then they got to build a machine. We talked about butterflies, lepidopterists, conservation, nature, symmetry, Rorschach blots, simple machines, and we made butterflies. It was a whole day of machines and butterflies, and it was awesome. It can be pretty involved if you're trying to set up something like that by yourself, but you can take these fundamentals of symmetry and put them into other lessons for studying art or studying objects or making objects, just so that your kids can have that artistic background to what they're working with. Our next art lesson is going to be about repetition and radial symmetry. We're going to be using some drafting tools, but you won't have to necessarily go out and buy a lot. A pencil, a piece of yarn, and a thumbtack. Oh yeah, and something to draw on. Those are the bare minimum. But if you want to get out shopping, you can get a drafting compass, a ruler, and a protractor. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you join me again for another quick little art lesson.